All right, welcome back, everybody. Our next speaker, Jodie Landis, is a Senior Director of Technical Documentation at Ping Identity. She leads efforts to develop comprehensive technical documentation and resources, and her specialty is managing complex technical content strategies for enterprise software solutions. Jodie, take it away.
Thank you, Jodie. Hey, y'all, the weather in Portland, right? I ordered it all just for you. Okay, by the way, Jodie and I were just having a conversation. Whenever we hear Jodie, we're all like, what? Because Jodie's such an unusual name. So as Jodie mentioned, I'm the Senior Director of Technical Documentation at Ping Identity. A little bit about myself. I've been with Ping for it'll be 4 years in September. I have 25 years of experience in technical documentation, and I will say that I do remember Rolodexes, I remember card catalogs, I remember it all, unfortunately, and I much prefer Google, by the way. And I realized I didn't put much personal about myself, but I actually live in Beaverton, so right over the hill, and this is my first time here at this conference, so I have no more excuses. I have to come here more often. So before I start sharing the journey of how our two documentation teams came together through a merger and acquisition, I want to share a little bit about Ping. So who is Ping Identity? So Ping Identity is a provider of identity and access management solutions, right? A lot of technical marketing speak. So what does it actually mean? For those not familiar, but are familiar with Amazon, are familiar with logging in to pay a bill, or logging in to see your latest healthcare, or logging into your email, right? There are Ping products in the background, depending on the company that you're going through, that will help protect that information and protect their information. In fact, I like to say you've probably used Ping products and not even known it, which is good. That's what we want. Right. So the beginning of this story starts once upon a time it was in October of 2022 when Ping Identity was purchased by Thoma Bravo. Is anybody familiar with who Thoma Bravo is? Yeah, giant conglomerate that likes to buy toys companies and build, right, and build them up and sell them as quickly as possible, right? That's their job, right? And then ForgeRock was purchased not even a year later, in October of 23, and 30 minutes later was combined and merged into Ping Identity, and I am not kidding you, it was that quick. It took a lot of people off guard, right? And if you don't know, Ping and ForgeRock were competing companies, so that made it even more fun, right? A little bit about Ping. We are based in Denver, Colorado, but we have offices all over the world. And we have over 2,500 employees. To be honest, I have lost count. I know we hired a bunch of people last year, and it just keeps growing. Our product doc team is large, but not large enough, as I like to say. We have 32 writers and growing. If you have not seen, we are actually hiring 2 level 2 technical writers this quarter. We are going to hire 1 manager next quarter, as well as a DevOps writer, API writer in Q3, and then Q4, hopefully 1 more writer, and I have yet to figure out where they're going to go. But we do need them. I just don't know where we need them yet. And then we have 2 editors. Yes, we have editors on staff, which I think we all know is a huge luxury. Yes, and they are the best. And Pleiades, I don't know if you're here, raise your hand. Pleiades is one of them, and she is a rock star. They're both rock stars. I don't know what we would do without them. And then we have a doc tools team that has 4 content engineers, and we have 2 of them here. Tony Chung, I bet most people in this room know Tony. I am I don't know who he doesn't know. It blows my mind constantly. And then Nabil Maynard is here as well. And just amazing folks that basically work on making the writers look great and publishing our content and controlling all those tools. And then we have 3 managers, including myself, soon to be 4, hopefully. And then Pingy, right? I didn't have like cat videos, but I have Pingy. Pingy is our mascot. Pingy is so highly coveted, y'all. It's not even funny. Like, I still have not yet have my Pingy. I hope he's gonna be arriving soon, but it's been a while, so I'm not holding out much hope. But we have a giant one in our office as well in Denver that is literally life-size if Pingy were a real thing. Okay, so when the merger happened, on both sides, we began looking at the documentation, right? And finding out a bit about each other, about our sites, what we had to offer. And it became very clear, first of all, is that we learned that we had two very different writing methodologies. So on the Ping side, they used DITA, and on the ForgeRock side, they used Docs's code. So it could not be any further apart, right? So first things first, we had to decide on a methodology. Second is obviously two different methodologies means two different tool sets and two different processes, and it could not be, again, any different, right? So we needed to choose how we were going to integrate whatever methodology we ended up choosing. And then at the end of all this, right, we needed to build a site. And so that's where we wanted to end up being at the end of this, this project that we worked on. All right, so how did we go about doing this? So first things first, we made a decision to go with Docs's code and ASCII doc. There were many reasons why we decided to do that, but a lot of it really came down to speed, right? We needed to teach people to get up and going as quickly as possible, and we felt that ASCII doc was the better way to do that because we didn't have time to waste. We couldn't like take a year and a half and just, slowly start building things out. We had to switch really, really quickly because we didn't want the writers to have to create content two different ways, right? So we needed to make a jump in either direction. So we decided ASCII doc was the better choice for that and Docs's code. And then we needed to, once we made that decision, we needed to start looking at our infrastructure and our tools, right? And not just looking at what we've done, but I hate saying future-proof, but becoming flexible. So in the future, if we had to pivot, we could pivot more easily. And I'll go into a little bit of that detail later. And then team alignment, right? We needed to get the team working together, and it did take a while because until we actually moved to these new systems and our new methodology, we were going to be separate but together, if that makes sense, right? All right, so number one, content conversion. How did we do it? So first of all, I'll tell you that we had to migrate 48,000 pages of content from DITA to ASCII doc. And we did it in 10 months, y'all. 10 months, we did it. Yeah. And we could not have done it without the DocTools team, specifically Dan Vint, who is not here, but that man is amazing. He basically created a script that used XSLT to convert the content from DITA to ASCII doc. And he did it leveraging a sample doc that basically took all the DITA stuff that we did and put it in that sample doc so that he could test it to make sure that it looked good in ASCII doc, right? So it was a lot of iteration, right? Oh, this doesn't look the way it should in ASCII doc. Well, how do we translate it that way, right? A lot of back and forth for many months, right? Because really remember what the goal here is for us, which was to, by the time we handed this content off to the writers, we wanted to make sure they had as little to do as possible, right? So it was all they had to really do. I don't want to say all because 48,000 pages of, little is still a lot, right? So we wanted to make sure that it was as clean as possible, and then only the things that they could really do was minimal. Right, and then we had a bunch of migration tasks as well in there, but I am still blown away at the amount of work that we were able to do. And without that script, we wouldn't have been able to do it in that short of an amount of time. So shout out to Dan. So hopefully he actually just messaged me about something else, so I'm gonna let him know I'm shouting him out. All right, so these next two slides talk about the infrastructure and the tool overhaul that we did. because it wasn't just enough for us to just, take tools and be able to kind of maybe replicate what we did on the ForgeRock side, right? It was more about what did we want to be? And I was very much wanting us to be in control of our own destiny, right? To control the tools, to control the ownership of them, because really nobody knows documentation better than documentation teams, right? And so we wanted to make sure that we had future control over as much as we possibly could across the line, right? So the website itself, so I'm going to break this down into two. So the website and then the tools and infrastructure. So number one, the website, we're very fortunate to have a UI UX team that's in the same group division as us. And so, we just reached out to Colin, who is the lead, and we said, hey, Colin, we need your help. We need to design a brand new site. And this was not just documentation, by the way. So Docs was the first on many, many different fronts to what the new Ping would end up looking like. So what you'll see, and if you go to the site today, that look and feel is getting propagated not only throughout our portals, but also into the UI itself, right? So for example, just a month ago, we released our new developer portal, and now it has a very similar look and feel. They look like sister sites now, and that's just going to slowly start propagating through to our support site, to marketing, to the UI, right, our SaaS UI, all across the board. But Docs was first. Yeah. We used Astro to actually create the navigation and landing pages. And by the way, I'm just going to put a little asterisk here. If you have any super deep dive technical questions, Tony and Nabil can answer them for you. And then we used Google Cloud Platform, basically just to host the site, which is honestly relatively cheap for us. And so that also gave us a lot of flexibility in terms of ownership as well. We stored the static docs on the GCP buckets, and then used the Nginx servers via load balancer, right? And then the servers run as custom Docker-based virtual machines to help with scaling and demand, because we knew that once the ForgeRock content and the Ping content combined, we literally doubled the amount of people that were viewing the site. So we needed to make sure that we had control over that. We used Jenkins for our pipeline work. This is something that ForgeRock had done, and there was really no reason to move away from that. The Jenkins pipeline worked great, and we just scaled that for our needs. And then, of course, to test our content, we had to put together a staging site and a PR build, for our PR builds as well. And then Git. We use Git for managing our configuration, right, and just controlling the content and having version control. All right, so on to the tools. So we have the overhaul part of the tools, and the tooling updates. And so number one thing that we wanted to kind of do is get rid of the reliance on Maven and start using more of the native features and functionality of Antora. So I would say we're definitely getting there. We're almost. There's still some older ForgeRock content that kind of relies on Maven that we're hoping this summer maybe we'll get off that. I don't know that we'll ever totally be 100%, but at least as reliant as we are today, we hope to remove that. All the dependencies were basically bundled together for the writers, so they didn't have to worry about any of that. It's just in one install package that they need to install, and boom, it's done. I mentioned about running natively on Antora. This really also, by the way, sped up our build time significantly. And then we created a custom JavaScript package for orchestration, all the extension details, et cetera, and also manage the dependencies as well. I mentioned Jenkins, so we just, again, decided to stay with Jenkins. We just needed to update it for the new builds, the new deployments, right? The one thing that we made a decision about, which we're very fortunate because Maven did help us with this, is we made the decision that when the new site launched, we were still going to publish to the old ForgeRock doc site. So we were able to do both at the same time. So when somebody published, it went to both locations. And the reason we did this is because, honestly, we had so much work that we had to do in less than a year that I couldn't grok the idea of, also having to manage the redirects, right? Right now, it was, at that point, it was still fine that it was on ForgeRock. We knew it would eventually get redirected to the new site, which we did the next quarter. So we launched in end of Q3, and by right before the holidays, I think mid-December, we just went ahead and started the redirect process, right, which actually went really smoothly. But don't get me started on all the broken links that we had to deal with, but that was fine. We got it thanks to the awesome folks on the Doc Tools team. We got through that. So mentioned the collaboration with UI UX. By the way, we just decided, hey, let's throw in a Gen AI search while we're at it. So again, this was a first for the company. It was the first time ever in the history of Ping. So I think about it to this day. When I look at the history of AI and when it was first introduced, it was docs that did it first. So so that was very exciting. And we're very fortunate that one of the folks on our Doc Tools team is our search guru, Pat, who couldn't make it either, but he's amazing at what he does with the search. So, and then for Jenkins, we ended up moving that to a private instance just to manage that higher builds, and then specifically around the volume. All right, pillar 3, team alignment. Putting together 2 teams into one team was definitely challenging, but also fun at the same time, right? You know, we had very different culture. We came from very different cultures. I mean, yeah, we had similar products, but that didn't mean the culture was the same, right? You know, you add that plus, obviously different tools, different methodologies, different mindset on how to create documentation, right? So we needed to bring that together and understand those differences, right? And understand the different work style, right, in terms of what is the process flow for docs for Ping and what is it for ForgeRock, and trying to align those together. Because really, at the end of the day, we wanted one team to work one way so there wasn't confusion. And most importantly, this vision I have in my head of any writer be able to go into Jira, take one off the top, so to speak, and just start working on it, right, regardless of the product, right? And then I would say, if I were to offer a piece of advice, if you're in a situation where you're managing or on a team that has come together through a merger and acquisition, find a project to work on together. It's really important, right? It was a little bit of a baptism by fire. I'm sure the writers would agree, and I think we kind of knew that would be the case, right? But it really, nothing drives the team together more than working towards a single goal, right, and a single vision. Right, and part of that was also getting together. I pushed really hard for the team to come together as part of the training of AsciiDoc for everyone on the team, and it really set the stage of getting to know each other. And as you all know, building a team, especially this large, does not happen overnight, and it takes even longer when you're working remotely, right? And so any time that we can get together, and I push hard to make that happen, whether it's coming, together for a conference or, getting together for an offsite, whatever the case may be, the more we can push to have that happen, the closer we become, right? And luckily, we have upper management that supports that. Doesn't mean there's always money for it, but they definitely support it. But I keep pushing for it, right? So at least once a year, all of us to somehow get together, right? Again, helping each other. I would say of anything that this whole process taught us is how important it is to work together. And we're so fortunate, like everyone on the team is so helpful. I mean, we had people, we have a pretty big writing contingency over in EMEA, over in Europe. And one of our writers, Chris, would be online late his time answering a question, right, for somebody over in Denver, right? That kind of dedication, because they didn't want to have people feeling like, they needed to get the information to them as soon as possible. So that type of teamwork and that willingness to step in and help is a hallmark of the team, and I'm super proud of that. Clear communication and support. I will tell you right now, I made mistakes. The team will tell you that, right? And that's okay, as long as, I felt like I learned from them. But it was a growing opportunity for everyone, including myself, right? And how to communicate a vision, how to communicate, my family will tell you this, I have ideas in my head or have a vision in my head, and I don't always explain what I'm trying to get to. So I need to be better at that, and I'm working towards that. And then making sure you celebrate success, right? So the team ended up getting a company team award in Q4 for the work they did in Q3, Q2, Q1, to be recognized for the amount of work that they did and being first in so many different things, and just the sheer amount of content that was converted. And we're still doing cleanup work. We knew that. To this day, we're still cleaning up some orphans. But at the end of the day, we got it done. Okay, it's probably hard to see this, and I apologize. But I want to show the difference. It's subtle, but at the same time not. So in the upper right corner is the old ForgeRock documentation style. In the bottom left is the old Ping style. And on the right is the new site. So this is where UX and UI really helped us, like putting in more white space, having a more readable font. If you look at the new site on mobile, I think it looks fantastic, right? Much easier to read, much easier to navigate. And we're still making changes, but I would say, most of it's pretty baked at this point. But just a much better reading experience. So just a few closing thoughts. The journey from the day we found out that we were being merged to unifying the content, it was short, but also felt long. I feel like sometimes I lost a couple years of my life, trying to make sure that everyone had everything they needed, making sure that I communicated as best as I could, and make sure the team had what they needed to get the job done. Again, we moved in a single direction, make sure that everyone had the tools and the processes they need to quickly write content. And one other thing I wanted to bring up that it's becoming really clear, and I knew this was going to happen, but I just didn't realize how important it was, is we actually now have other teams that are using our processes. Right? And that's huge for us. So when the merger happened, we found these ancillary sites that other teams had started writing. Like, for example, we have DevOps documentation for our DevOps product. It was its complete own portal because somebody decided they wanted to take on that documentation themselves. Now they are integrated. They wanted to be part of the new Docs site so that we got them into our process. So they own the content, we review it, right? We make sure that we have say over, how that information looks. But it's a dream, right? To have somebody else in your organization kind of own that content and update it as needed, and it takes strain off the team, right? So we're seeing more of that happening and a lot of excitement, especially from engineering, because the Docs' code resonates with them. Right? They understand Git. They understand everything that we're doing, right? So it's been a major boon that I, again, knew was coming, but I didn't really figure it was going to happen so quickly. So very exciting stuff. And then, again, we wanted to build something that was scalable, future-ready, not future-proof necessarily, because I think we all know what that can get to. And then making sure you're celebrating the achievement, right? Every little thing, if you can, celebrate it, right? It's a lot of work doing this kind of conversion. I think as a Docs as code approach, it really met our needs. And I wish we could have had, more time for this process to happen, but like I said, we had to do something relatively quickly to get, folks on the same path and using the same tools right away. And then it took effort to scale, right? It's something that we keep in mind all the time as we continue to work with our tools and add new features to our documentation. Tony's actually really great at this as well, is like thinking about the future, right? Is this supportable? Is this something that we can manage over time, and can it grow? Like, are we working ourselves into a corner, right? We don't want to do that. Finally, again, find a project that you all can work towards. It's super important, right? It can be big, small, whatever, as long as you all are working together to accomplish something together, I think is really important. And the other thing I wanted to make sure that the team knew was that we owned our own destiny, right? I really wanted to have control over that. I didn't want to have to rely necessarily on third party or, other groups in our organization controlling what we had access to, right? We made made decisions, and really, again, because we feel like we know documentation better than anyone, what we need, right? And making sure we push for that as much as possible. All right, I think that's it for me. Thank you. And again, I just want to shout my team out. They're like right here. I see their friendly faces. Hey, y'all. So they're probably getting tired of me saying it, but they're an amazing group of human beings. So thank you all very much.
Thank you for that, Jodie.
Yeah.
I found that really compelling and personally relevant, so that was incredibly valuable for me. Lots of stuff for me to take back to my job. So I'm going to jump right in. We get a bunch of good questions here. First up is, what did the stakeholder group look like, and how did you get buy-in on your decision about how to integrate the systems?
Honestly, we made our compelling case, I think, mostly it was us as stakeholders, honestly. From an upper management perspective, as long as we gave reasons why we made the decisions we made, then we didn't really have any issues per se. I will say, there in the team itself, there was disagreement, right? Because I think somebody mentioned yesterday, you go with what you know, right? And at the same time, I understand that, but we were in a little bit of a time crunch. So we didn't have the luxury of necessarily learning anything super new either. So it's that time management and setting expectations.
Sounds like it was super stressful having to make a lot of really important decisions very quickly.
Yeah, I learned a lot, and some things I would do again, and some things maybe I'd rethink.
Yeah, such is life, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so another one is you work for a security company. Mm-hmm. Do you have many institutional security requirements, and if so, did those have an impact on your decisions about the tools and systems you could use?
Honestly, no, because all of our documentation is open. So we haven't. No, I will say we're working now on using authentication methods, not to control who has access to our documentation, but using it for personalization of content.
Fun.
Right?
Yeah.
So that, if I'm a customer and I have ping 1, I want to know about what's changed in ping 1, right? So those are the types of things that, yes, it helps with security, but also drives that personalization.
Cool. I'm going to just riff on that for a second because I find that really interesting. You said in your talk that you have a lot of support from folks like the UI UX teams. Mm-hmm. Does that carry over into your development feature requests as well? Does your approach involve looking at the docs like a product?
In fact, from my manager up, docs is a product. It is considered a product. So we have these.
Yes, round of applause, please. That's huge.
So every quarter we do what's called a quarterly business review, and that's where basically the product managers go and they do all of their assessments. They look at competition. They evaluate the products versus the competition, sales, et cetera, et cetera. Docs is now part of that process. So we don't have sales per se, right? But we have other data that treats, our documentation. We're thought of as a product now in the product organization, at least from a high level. We're still getting that message down through the PMs.
But that's a level of recognition that I assume you had to battle to get. So that's pretty huge.
Yeah, I think that one of the other things too that can help when you're talking about making decisions about documentation is how important documentation is to sales, right? If you can start showing the value of, let's say, you do a sales report of, a win-loss report, and you can say, hey, we won 2/3 of our new business, and part of that was documentation, right? Documentation is the only product that can help across the board, from pre-sales to integration to support, right? It's a lot of bang for their buck.
I'm really excited about that. Just cavelling up here. Okay, anyways, can you describe what criteria you use to select ASCII Doc beyond the consideration of just there being a low barrier to entry?
I think one of the biggest reasons we did it is, again, just it really came down to learning, right, and getting it up and quickly as possible. I mean, that was just one of the things that we had to do. We didn't have, I would have loved to have had more time to think about something different, but we needed something too that other people, as we onboarded them, could learn very, very quickly. And ASCII Doc provides that, right? Again, I was mentioning how we're getting a lot of excitement from the engineering team they're like, oh my gosh, this whole docs as code thing, it totally resonates, right? We totally get it. And so what's really important about that is getting feedback, right? So part of the PR process is getting feedback, and engineers understand that. And so if you can remove that barrier, right, you want more people to give you feedback, and whatever mechanism we can do that, that's what that brought us to.
Absolutely. Was there a fear of job security when the team came together? And if so, how did you guys work through that together? How did you folks work through that together?
There was an adjustment. I'll be honest, there were some people that were let go, which it's normal. It happens, right? Redundancy. I'm an honest person. I was really surprised and I was not the leader of the team when that happened. And so there were decisions made that were way above my pay grade. But that's what we're working towards now, is building that team back up again. And one of the things, first of all, when you're trying to get more people for your team, use data. The more data you have, that's actually how we ended up getting as many people this year as we are. Because I was able to show, number one, ratio, right? So I calculated, it was last year, when I started planning for this year, we were at 18-to-1 engineers to writers. That's a lot, right? I think average is around 10-to-1. So that was number one. If you can take I'll say emotional out of it, but just, you're not gonna get buy-in if you say, well, we need more writers, right? But if I can say, well, we're 18-to-1, we should be at least as closer to 10-to-1 as we can. Plus, hey, look at all the tickets we have, right? That's how we were able to get more people this year.
Yeah, that plus the demonstrating the business value, right, that you were talking about.
Exactly. And the other thing too is, I was talking to the CEO about this. We were talking about Gen AI, and I said, writers are more important than ever, because writers write the data that AI uses to generate content, right? So we need more writers because we need more content. We need more data for the AI to ingest.
More trustworthy data.
Exactly. Yeah. Human data, human written data.
Yes. So overload is hard to navigate when going through so much change. Did you take a phased approach to adding a new process or tool?
No.
No. Just jump in.
We had to. There wasn't a good way to do it, honestly. Again, if we had time, but even if we would have had time, you know, I'm thinking about it from a writer perspective. They'd create content, right? And okay, while we're trying to figure out a way to do it, like, oh, well, we'd have to write it in two places, two different processes. It was just better to cut and go and iterate, right?
Just tear off the Band-Aid. It's fine.
There's just no other way to do it.
How are you supporting other groups to keep documentation consistent and empowering non-documentation colleagues? Is that trainings, videos, office hours?
So we have been opening ourselves up more to, like, we did office hours, I think we're part of an organization called Experiences. So it's docs, UI, UX, developer. So our goal as a group is to make products and documentation and experiences better for customers. We continue to meet with people and get feedback. We are exploring AI tools to help non-writers write content for us. And I haven't shown the team this yet. We saw a demo of it. No, it's actually a really good thing. It's meant to really the whole goal is to start with a good draft of content from a subject matter expert. And this has to do with use cases, right? That's the one thing we really struggle with is use cases. It's just because we don't know what the use cases are, right? That's for our sales engineers. So wouldn't it be awesome if the sales, and they do this today anyway, it's just hidden, right? They'll use Confluence or write their own document. The writers know this, right? So we just need a way for them to get the information in a way that we can just take it then and curate it. Right, somebody mentioned yesterday, and I thought it was really well pointed out, that we need to broaden the scope of who a writer is to help write content, and then we own that content organization. We own the strategy of it, right? So this tool that we were looking at just kind of blew our mind to be able to get that content in a format that we can then use and then clean up and get out as quickly as possible.
Cool. I'll ask you what that tool is off the page. So from William, we have a question about how many time zones is your team spread across? And do you have any preferred tools for managing asynchronous comms?
So we use Slack a lot, lots of Slack. And we are spread out. We have lots of writers on the West Coast, as far as all the way over, well, we have one writer in South Africa and 2 writers in Israel. So I think Israel is about as far as we go right now. We do have engineering in India, though we don't have a writer in India. I don't know that we're slated to do that, but yeah.
Do you have like a follow the sun model where people can hand things off, or is it just like you have work in very specific buckets?
It depends, right? So, for example, one of our products, Advanced Identity Cloud, that writer, 2 of the writers are over in Bristol. And so when we have we'll have a change log like every day or every other day, depending on what's going out. And if they're waiting for something to happen, and we use the little soccer emoji, and they'll boot it over to somebody, usually has done that process before, and they'll just boot it over to us to get it published.
I like the visual aid there. That's good.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing too. That's the one other thing that's really great about this process is that anyone can publish the content. If it's, if the PR is merged, we're ready to go. You just merge it and publish, and you don't, have to be around as long as you communicate, right, what needs to happen.
Yeah, so you don't have your publications team and the Pacific time zone, and somebody in Israel is like, I have a release going out. Can somebody help me out, please? Oh, you're all asleep.
Yeah, we don't really have to worry about that.
Very nice. All right, well, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for this informative talk. I will probably pick your brain again later.
Okay. Thank you.